Welcome to the BusyWise podcast. I'm Leslie Wilson. I'm your host. Each week, I'm inviting a guest to join us and tell part of their story and the wisdom that they learned through it. Today, I'm so excited to welcome my friend Lisa Lewis to the podcast. She's the Director of Development, Corporate, and Government Partnerships at Richland County Recreation Commission, and she's a lifelong learner. Right now, she's getting her doctorate degree in Parks, Recreation, and Tourism at Clemson University. She says she grew up around college campuses, and she's going to share a lot of advice about learning, about growth, even about loss, and some of the best advice that she's ever received. And really, it's something that she learned throughout her life. So I can't wait for you to hear from her. Without further ado, welcome Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being part of this program.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
So now, I was telling them that you and I know each other from work, but then you had to put up that background. And I did also tell them that you're getting your doctorate from Clemson, so I hope they understand the orange because I'm a little bit offended as a Carolina fan, but it's okay because I'm so excited for you and your journey in education. And really, I think that's a lot of what we'll talk about today. But first, I wanted to hear a little bit about where you started. Tell me a little bit about where you're from, about your family.
All right, so I started as a bouncing baby girl in Miami, Florida. That's where I was born. I lived there with my parents, my mom and my dad. My dad was a truck driver, and my mom was a dean of students at Florida Memorial College. That's what it was called at the time. Now I think it's Florida Memorial University. So I grew up a pretty spoiled kid. I was the only one in the house. I had half brother and half sister, but they were older and they lived on their own. So I was the baby girl of the family. A lot of times, of course, my dad was on the road because he was a truck driver. But my mom was one of them people that everybody loved. So when she took me on campus, everybody just, came to me like, oh, I'll watch her for you if you got to work or if you got to do stuff. So I was always on a college campus since I was little. Now, the crazy part about it, although I was, I grew up on a college campus, so to speak, I hated school. Like, I literally hated school. I went to private school my whole life, and I didn't like doing homework. Like, when the teacher asked to take up the homework, I would leave and go to the bathroom because I didn't do my homework. Like, I really didn't like school, which was kind of the opposite of my mom. My mom was so, like, education prone, education this, education that. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So by the time I was 8 or 9, my mom decided to go back to school. She already had her master's. She wanted to get a doctorate, and she ended up enrolling at Florida State. So we moved to Tallahassee, which I didn't want to go, of course, because I'm so used to, everybody in Miami. So we moved to Tallahassee. She started going to Florida State. I attended another private school. I started in 6th grade. It was called North Florida Christian School in Tallahassee, Florida. And I turned into a Florida State fan after leaving Miami. So we lived up there until I was about 17. My mom stayed, but I actually had to go to college. Like, I was forced to go to college. Like, I was like, no, I'm gonna stay with my high school sweetheart. I'll go to technical school because he was like a year or so behind me. And I was like, I'll just go to the local technical school. She was like, no, you're not. You're going to college and you're going away. So went away to college. I first started at Tuskegee University and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, I'm not going to say I loved it because of the classes. I loved it because it was different for me. So coming from private school where you're the only Black person that graduated in your senior class, right? And then going to Tuskegee, where everybody is Black. Like, I say it's a culture shock, even though I'm Black, I say it's a culture shock, but it was just different. It was so awesome just walking around, seeing your own people, and they're getting educated and they're smart and they want to be engineers and they want to do all of these things and veterinarians. And it's just like, wow, like I didn't see that in high school. So that was a great experience. Stayed there for a couple years. My dad became really sick. He was having some health challenges. My mom moved to Columbia, which is here. So I just left school and came to Columbia to help my mom out with my dad. So I did that for about 2 years. Went back to school in Charlotte, got my undergrad. Right after I got my undergrad, I had a terrible health scare. Right after graduation, I got really, really, really sick, really bad. I couldn't walk, couldn't open things up. Go to the doctor, they think it's thyroid. So they give you medicine for your thyroid. That wasn't helping. I lost weight like dramatically. But one thing about me that I can say, I grew up in the era of grin and bear it. Like, you just, whatever you're going through, you keep going regardless of what it is. And that's what I did. So my goal was to move back to Miami. Although I wasn't feeling well, I did that. Like, I moved back to Miami on my own. I wanted to go to grad school to get my master's, but my health was getting worse and worse and worse. So finally, I went to the doctor. My mom said to go to an endocrinologist. Went to the endocrinologist. He did a lot of blood work. While the blood work was getting processed so we could find out what was going on, a hurricane came. It was actually two. They came back to back when I was in Miami. So I couldn't get the results back, in a timely manner. So I wanted to go back home. Well, what I call home, Charlotte. I wanted to go back to Charlotte for homecoming from my undergrad school. So I got my two cats. We got in my Explorer and I drove to Charlotte, although I wasn't feeling good. And as soon as I got back to Charlotte, I was exhausted. Like, I laid in the bed. My mom had to help me up. My mom had to put on my clothes. I still went to homecoming for one day. I went for one day. Like, I went to the concert with two of my close friends from college. They got a chair for me and I sat by the stage, enjoyed the concert, and then I went home. So my mom was like, yeah, you're not getting better. Let's pack up your stuff. You're coming to Virginia with me. By that time, she was in Virginia working at St. Paul's College as a vice president. So I didn't argue, got in the car with her. We left my truck at my cousin's house that lives in Charlotte, and we went to Virginia, South Hill, Virginia, which is about this big, right? So I stayed there. A little different
than Miami.
Right. So I stayed there for a while. And we were still waiting on the results to come back, but I was declining. Like, my heart rate was so high that my mom called the emergency room to see, like, is this too high? And they were like, yeah, she needs to come in. But I remembered the doctor was like, don't go to the hospital, because if you go to the hospital, they'll probably just try to cover up the pain instead of finding out what's really going on. So finally, the doctor called and he was like, it's lupus. He was like, she needs to see a rheumatologist. So once we found out it was lupus, I saw the rheumatologist. The rheumatologist sent me to the emergency room the same day that I went to see him. Yep, Dr. Levesky. I'll never forget him. When he saw me, it was like, you could see in his face, it was kind of scary for him. So when I saw him, because he was in town that day, he sent me immediately to the emergency room. And I stayed in the emergency room for a few days because I was dehydrated. I had lost a lot of weight. I wasn't eating. Hair was falling out, all type of things. So once I got in the hospital, got on IVs, they were giving me medicine. I got pain medicine. All of those things were good. Got out of the hospital. They got me an appointment at Duke Rheumatology. I was diagnosed with lupus in December 2005. And from there on, I just been, on my meds, making sure everything was good. And so far, everything has been good. Pretty much this past year, I've had some issues, but other than that, I've been doing well as far. So that's my journey from a baby.
It's
now.
Amazing how
that was a lot.
It was, but at the same time, it's one of those, like, every step took you to where you needed to be to get the diagnosis that you needed. You saw the doctors you needed to see, all of those things. Now, after you had a diagnosis, you ended up back in Columbia. How did that happen? How did you, once you had kind of gotten the medical part resolved, how did you come to those next steps?
So while I was getting the treatments and going back and forth to Duke, I stayed in Virginia for 6 months. Because I still couldn't really walk as well and stuff. I had to have a wheelchair and all those things. So it took about 6 months till I was able to actually move to Miami. Okay. I moved back to Miami, got in grad school. I got into Bear University. So when I went there, I was studying sport management. I got into that field, working with the Miami Heat and volunteering for different organizations down there. So I did that for a while, and everything was like on the up and up then, going well. And I graduated from grad school. I worked down there for a little bit after grad school, maybe 2 years, with like player foundations and the Miami Heat. And then I started falling in love with nonprofit work while I was down there. But I realized I didn't know anything, the ins and outs, how it's supposed to run or anything like that. So I decided to go back to school again. So I actually applied for school in Charlotte at University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And my late husband, he was my boyfriend at the time. He actually lived in Columbia. So then I moved back to Columbia and would go back and forth to Charlotte for school twice a week. And the degree I got was a graduate certificate in nonprofit management. So I've been in Columbia ever since. I graduated from grad school. I left in 2011 and moved up here in Columbia. So I've been here ever since 2011.
Okay, so countdown for me. Your college degree was in?
The undergrad.
Your undergrad.
Okay, undergrad was in public relations and marketing.
Okay, master's.
Sport management.
Then the graduate certificate.
Nonprofit.
And then what are you studying? What's your doctorate going to be?
It will be in parks, recreation, and tourism management, which I am currently in now.
It looks like your journey through education definitely follows the passions that you had. Now, when you began to work in the nonprofit sector, what drew you to that?
Oh my goodness. Like just being able to give back to youth where you're from, right? Mm. So I was able to set up field trips and all type of things for youth, go in their neighborhoods, bring basketball stars in the neighborhoods, give away Christmas. Like every Christmas, we would do something with Dwayne Wade's Foundation, whether it's taking them to a theme park that we had down there called Santa's Enchanted Forest, or just giving a family a house, or giving them items for Christmas that they couldn't afford for their kids. Like stuff like that really, it does something to your heart, especially when it's in your, neighborhood or where you grew up. I thought that was like just totally awesome. Even like when I did it with the Heat, they would just do some type of fundraisers where the players would come and people get to meet the players and do different activities. I just thought that was all awesome because all the money goes somewhere in the community. And it's all about, my favorite word, Leslie, is impact.
It is.
So it was a huge impact.
Well, and then how does that passion for serving your community, how does that link into your connection to Parks and Recreation? Like how did those two become married?
Right. So Parks and Rec, bottom line, we're here for the community. That's our whole purpose. Our whole purpose is to serve. And that's my heart. I have a heart of serving. Even in personal life, I give the shirt off my back to anybody I love, anybody, and they'll tell you that I'll do anything for them. So being able to create programs and create scholarships that are helping families and giving even teenagers something to do with their parents, like creating art together. Like, I just think that's totally awesome. And I hope I'll be able to have that type of impact for the rest of my career.
Mm-hmm. So now talk to me a little bit about, through all of these challenges, you went to college and found your own medical diagnosis. I know you said your father was sick and your mother was a caretaker. What has your personal loss story taught you about giving, about impact? How has that influenced who you're becoming?
As far as personal loss, I've had two major. Wait a minute, hold on. Okay, so I've had two major personal losses in my life that were actually 4 years apart. So my dad, who passed away in 2013, which is the same year I started my current job, uh, which was crazy. Like he passed in April, and I started my current job in and like I always think about my dad when I'm doing things. My dad had a heart of gold. Like just like me, he'll give the shirt off your back. He was always welcoming to anybody. He was a country boy. So, a country boy never met a stranger. Now, I didn't have that. I kind of take after my mom when it comes to people and personality. I may be kind of standoffish, first, but he was a good person and he was always giving. So I know that's something that's automatically instilled in me from him. And also he was a hard worker. Like at one point I had 4 jobs that I was working. Like I don't have a problem with working hard. I never have. Never been scared of work. And then 4 years later, I lost my husband in 2017. And you know what those losses kind of did for me is kind of changed the lens on how I move, right? So I'm not as cautious anymore. I kind of live for the day. I try to do as much as I can for people while I'm here. I try to show people appreciation more. I try to tell people I love them more. I'm more genuine and wiser, like just wiser about life. Life is short and it's precious. Like you can't, if you love somebody, don't treat them any kind of way. If you love somebody, let them know that. Don't be afraid to tell, even if it's every day and you getting on people's nerves. Like I love you, like you say this every day. You know what I'm saying? Like I make sure I tell my 17-year-old son that I love him, so he knows that, whether it's in text or whether it's by voice, so that if I was to leave this earth at any time, he knew that I loved him. And I got that from my dad and my husband, right? So one thing about my dad, he always told me he loved me. When we were on the phone, when we were together. So when he left, it was no doubt in my mind that I loved him and he loved me. And the same with my husband. I was the last person my husband saw before he passed away. And we always told each other we loved each other. So just having that does a lot for me. And I do that with my friends and my family and people I love. I tell you I love you.
Yeah.
So
I'm
know
thankful.
that. And
I'm thankful.
yeah. So I'm more appreciative about life and understand, tomorrow's not promised. So make sure, you do your best. You do what you got to do. You create that impact that you're trying to create. You advocate for what you got to advocate for, so that when you leave, they can say one thing about Lisa. You knew she loved you. She was a hard worker. She advocated for the right things. She impacted the community. Look at the stuff that she has that we can look back on and be like, Lisa did that. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how my lens has changed.
It's important. I think that as I talk to people and I learn things, I know that I don't want to live a life where I go, if I had been a little bolder, if I had been a little more willing, I could have done bigger. I could have, and not necessarily for me, but for the people I love, for the community that I love. And I think that it's hard to when you're in the middle of the day-to-day to keep that focus. But it sounds like from your story that focus lives in the front because of the story that you've lived. So that's super special, I think.
Now I will say sometimes that view gets a little distorted because things get thrown at you all the time. And like I said before, sometimes I just have to sit. I just have to just sit for a second and really think about, your next move, because you never want to try to move off emotions, because people can take you there, people can take you there. But it's important, like you said, to try to remember the focus and the purpose of what you're doing, and the things that you have done, and look back on them and say, this is why I do what I do.
Tell them your equation.
Oh,
tell them your equation.
So something I learned, let me tell you, I was an intern when the Charlotte Bobcats first started. I was one of the first interns that they had. And then one of the guys that was like high up, I can't remember his name, but I'll never forget what he said. He said one thing that he lives by, and he wrote it on the board. It was I over E. So we were all like, I over E, like, what does that mean? He said, when you're making decisions, especially business decisions, it's intelligence over emotion. Never make a decision at work when you're emotional. So take that time to sit, take that time to think before you respond to anything, whether it's an email, whether it's they're right in front of you. Just try to take that time to think and make your decision off of intelligence. Because when you make it off of emotion, it's never going to end well. Trust me, I've messed up before. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try my best to and I tell people that, even like when I was a professor at Benedict, that's one thing I tell my students: intelligence over emotion when you're making decisions. I tell some of my coworkers the same thing. Wherever I go, I preach I over E.
She tells me all the this time, because my reaction to most everything is emotion first. And then compassion, and then logic.
Logic.
So good. I'm like somewhere like emotion, compassion, logic is my usual move. And I think it's so powerful to say that the decision needs to be made in that intelligence space, because it allows for people to have the emotion, to understand the emotion, and then but then not to act solely on the emotion, because there's a lot of regret that comes from acting solely on an emotional response to something.
That's right.
So I love that equation. Sometimes I roll my eyes at it, but I love it.
It helps. I roll my eyes at it too sometimes, but I'm telling you, it really helps. It helps.
So now tell me what you're learning through your latest education journey. So you're in a doctorate degree about parks and recreation, and maybe not like the tight level, because I know you have so much information that you're learning, but bigger level, what life lessons are you learning through this continuing journey of your education?
First of all, it's system overload. Let me just say that. It is a lot of information, but it's great information, because it's not the information that you'll learn working in Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. Like, I've learned so much in these last, almost 12 years on the hands-on side, right? The practical side, right? But once I started school 3 years ago, it was like a whole nother side about how people think and why they do things that they do. Just going into brains, like the adolescent brain and the adult brain, and reasons behind, and theories, and like all of these things you learn that you never think about in Parks and Rec. So as far as life, it's really showed me the importance of Parks and Rec, health and wellness, and things like that. On the other side, because you got statistics, you know what I mean? Like the statistics of how kids' mental health is, I'm just throwing something out there. Just the mental health of kids is better, like percentages about that, percentages of how it helps with heart health, percentages of how it helps with diabetes, like just different things that Parks and Rec do. It's not only sports. You know what I mean? It's all type of things. It's mental, physical, socialization. All of those things are important in Parks and Rec. So I've learned from a different view, and it kind of has turned me into an advocate for Parks and Rec. I think it's important that people outside of where we work, because we understand it, right? Mm-hmm. But people outside of us, when you talk about legislators and policy and the importance of youth development and all of those things, Parks and Rec is here. You know what I mean? We can help with all of those things, youth development, senior health, all of that. We're here for that. And I think I've learned that, from being in school right now. And I'm still learning. Like I'm still learning about things that I can help the agency with that I'm with now.
It's funny because it almost sounds like, you have that emotional connection, that love for Parks and Rec and for impact, but the education has given you the eye, has given you the decision-making ability based on the information,
right.
And so you already knew how important it was. You saw lives changed, but a lot of times, while a personal testimonial is the most important, like, storytelling device we have, at some point the numbers need to match up. The numbers need to be proven out. And so being able to have that tool in your toolbox helps with the larger impact of what you're doing and what you're passionate about. So that's really cool that your journey has taken you to a new level of understanding something that you're already in love with. What kind of guidance would you give someone who is, let's say, mid-career? They love what they're doing, but they're still trying to figure out what they can do next, like because of your background, because of kind of the way you've moved through the circumstances you've had. What kind of advice would you give them about the steps that they can take to grow in whatever way?
Yeah, so just depending on your passion. I always say follow your passion. Sometimes people don't know what their passion is, or they can't kind of, they kind of can't figure out, what they want to do. But I'll say follow your passion. Now, I'm not going to say, like, I wasn't a Parks and Rec kid. That wasn't me. I was a tap dance piano kid. But but when I got here, I actually took the time to learn and understand what Parks and Rec was. And then it kind of made me see, like, what I wanted to do. Like, how can I bring impact to the job, right? Like, how can I leave, like, you know how people like to leave a legacy? Like, what can my legacy be here? What can I do to elevate this agency? And that's a question you can ask yourself. What type of tools do I have in my box where I can elevate the agency, where I can go to my supervisor and be like, hey, I was really thinking about this. Never be too shy to throw your ideas out there. If you have ideas, write them down. Write down your goals. Talk to your supervisor. Try to network with other people outside your agency that maybe be in the same level that you are. See what they're doing. Get a mentor. Talk to somebody that's at the level that you want to be. Surround yourself around people that are doing better and where you want to go, that can actually mentor you, talk to you to get you where you need to be. Sometimes you have to leave where you are to get to where you want to be, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be afraid to journey away from your comfort, right? Because they say, if your dreams aren't big enough, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. Mm. And the way my brain works, my dreams terrify me. Because I'm like, how can I do that? How can I get here? How's that going to happen? Somebody had to push me, and I'm not going to say his name, but he had to push me to apply for Clemson in this PhD program. I was terrified. I was terrified not only of the rejection that I thought I would get, but just terrified of the work that comes with applying for a PhD, because I watched my mom do it. She literally just graduated a few months before I applied. And like I tell people, if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. Mm-hmm. You got to do better. Don't get complacent. And I think that's one of the things for me. Like, I can accomplish something, but it's like, what's next? What's next? Like, there's no ceiling for me. Like, I'm always looking for the next thing. You know, that's the advice I would give. You know, surround yourself with people even outside of your agency. Get with somebody that's at a level that you want to be at. Pick their brain. I'm a brain picker. I will call anybody to pick their brain. I just called somebody today that's a House representative to pick his brain about the direction I want to go for my dissertation. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Always be inquisitive. Professional development is also key. Look out there and see what classes or workshops, or even if you can go to trainings or conferences, get with your supervisor and see how you can, build that way as well.
I think that's all really, really good advice. I feel like I needed to slow it down to half speed so that people can make bullet points. Maybe we'll put the bullet points in the show notes or something. The advice,
right, just
advice
put them on
points. So with that, I would have to ask you, what is the best advice you've ever gotten?
I would say this, and I use this in life all around, whether it's relationships, whether it's family, whether it's work. And it's not advice that I actually was told. It's what I've learned going through some of the traumatic experiences of loss that I've been through. And the key word is expectation. One thing I learned, and I learned it the hard way. I hate to learn things the hard way, but when you learn it the hard way, it sticks with you, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing I learned is do not put expectations on people, right? Mm-hmm. So just because I do something how I do it, I can't expect somebody else to give it back to me the same way. Because when you set those expectations on people, you end up getting heartbroken. It just, and I'm not going to say all the time, but a lot of the time that happens, like I can't put expectations on my coworkers or supervisors or anything like that. Like, I expected them to say this. I expected them to do that. Because when you do that, it kind of, I don't want to say breaks your heart, but it kind of makes you look at them different. Like, why would you do that? Or why would you say that? Or why would you go behind my back? And, even with family, like, you can't put expectations on family. Like, I expected you to love me, which means you will have my back, but that doesn't always happen. Mm. And in reverse, don't put expectations on me, Like, when I lost my husband, people expected this of me or expected me to do that. You can't do that. That's not fair. That's not fair to me, because that's how I learned it. Putting expectations on my late husband's family, like, they're supposed to do this, they're supposed to do that, but that's not fair to them because they're moving through grief just like I'm moving through grief. Mm. It just may look different for them than it looks for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I kind of learned that, and I use that through life. Like, I'm not putting expectations on anybody. Like, not anyone, not work, not family, friends, anything. Like, if I love you, I love you, and I'm going to love you through it. And that's what it is. I'm not going to expect you to do the same for me. So that's what I learned. Not that anybody told me that. It was just a hard lesson that I had to learn.
That's a really interesting lesson, because I think it's very easy to do, to say, if I do X, somebody else will do Y. And then and it's an internal bargain. Like, it's not a spoken agreement. It's an unspoken expectation. So I'm going to give this much and they're going to receive it in a certain way. They're going to react in a certain way, or they're going to reciprocate in a certain way. And then they don't even know that they're part of they don't even know what it is you're seeking, because you have this internal bargain in your head that you've made that they have no visibility into.
No clue.
Man, that's pretty powerful to think about how many times we actually do that. And, even I think as a parent, I think that that's something I learned, but I wouldn't have put it that way, is that I have to say, hey, kiddo, I need X from you, or I expect this behavior or that behavior. But like getting mad at a 5-year-old because they didn't produce a behavior they had no clue about is pointless and painful for everybody involved, But
That's
I don't think I would have ever applied that to other people. And I think that probably there have been some emotional times where someone didn't meet that expectation that I internally set, that I, maybe I valued something that I assumed or expected them to value in the same way. And they had no clue that it was valuable to me. They just thought it was just a thing. So when they discarded it, I was heartbroken and they were confused,
Right.
That's really something to ponder. Like, how often do we do that? And
yes,
why?
Yes.
Why do we expect people to meet us somewhere that they don't even have directions to? That's
because you want people to treat, like, if I'm treating you good, I expect you to treat me good back, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen.
It doesn't. In fact, a lot of times it doesn't,
Right.
And then you wonder, so then you flip it around and you go, so how many times am I like letting people down in their expectations of me that I don't even know about? Like, boy, that'll flip you on your head real fast.
Right. And that's why I say, don't put those expectations on me. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair to me.
Yeah.
It's not fair to me.
Communicate with me. We'll make an agreement, and then that's different than these unspoken expectations.
That's right.
Right. I think that's a really powerful place to leave this. So I'm going to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's such a powerful story, and I'm so thankful that through all of the many journeys that you've taken, that part of that journey has been getting to know you and be friends with you. I'm very, very grateful to have you in my life and to have that wisdom and that very opposite perspective of me sometimes in my life, because it really, I feel like I've grown a lot knowing you, and I'm so deeply thankful for that. So thank you so much for being part of this.
You're welcome. Thank you for being you. Don't ever stop being you. You're a rock star.
So, well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later, okay?
Bye.
When Lisa says her favorite word is impact, she means it. But wow, that last piece of wisdom about not setting expectations for other people has kind of rocked my world a little bit. I really know that I do that and realize how much I've hurt myself and other people by setting an expectation they never knew existed. So how do you do that? And is that something that you're challenged by? I'd love to hear in the comments. I'd also love it if you like, follow, and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you don't miss any content as the channel grows. And next week, I'm so excited to bring you Abby Mantor. She is also a doctor. She's a doctor of theology, and she talks to us about how her education journey informed the way she deals with so much of her everyday life. And so I can't wait for you to hear her story. I'd like to challenge you again this week to look around your everyday busy life and consider what wisdom have you gained and who you can share it with.